Greetings, folks. Iolair back again with another Division replay. In fact, it's been quite a few weeks since I've posted a Division replay, but by some coincidence, both that previous Division replay and this one have a lot in common. So this is a match that features Jimijaz and myself in a pair of Tier 6 ships in Tier 6 battle on Ring with aircraft carriers involved. But this match differs from the previous Division replay in that this is a domination battle, whereas the previous one was standard battle, and we are playing different ships. So Jimijaz is sailing the new European destroyer Västerås, and I am in my trusty, reliable German light cruiser obligatorily exploding Nürnberg. Jimijaz's build focuses on endurance with survivability expert and supporting his gun systems with BFT. He also has the torpedo tubes modification 1 upgrade in slot 3 to get some faster torpedoes. And my build in the Nürnberg has not changed from what my previous Nürnberg replay. I am using one of the Von Jutland brothers to take advantage of their buffed skills. So we started off with Jimijaz's perspective over by Alpha as he's moving to the west flank, and we switched to my perspective so you can see where I've kind of set up here. This is often a very good position for long-range artillery cruisers to be able to support both the cap and the west flank because it is a fairly protected position. However, with aircraft carriers being involved, I'm getting detected fairly regularly, so I have to be careful about how far I back up in order to avoid taking shots from the Normandy, which we've switched over to Jimijaz's perspective as he's just sent torpedoes on that battleship. And Jimijaz is going to work this flank, but you can already look at the battle and see that things are already quite imbalanced. Our presence on the west is quite weak. We lost a cruiser already, so we gave up first blood to the opposition. Now we switch back to my perspective because our destroyer, Nicholas, that was in Alpha has been taken out, and our west flank is already collapsing. So I already know that I need to start moving. I'm going to hold my fire here because I'm flat broadside to 2 battleships, and I need to get turned into a position where I can reposition and re-engage on terms that are better for me. I will start sort of skirting the edge of this island and using my rear turrets to fire on the opposition once I know that I can escape safely, and if they decide to pay attention to me, I can move behind the island and get out of harm's way if needed. So again, I'm putting some fire here on the Normandy. Now, one thing I should call out here is I am using free camera for my Nuremberg portion of the replay here because, as Jimijaz has pointed out, when I'm in a tense battle, I tend to do some pretty aggressive panning and zooming, and Jimmy describes it as trying to watch those types of replays with that sort of very aggressive panning tends to be seizure inducing. So I've used free camera for my perspective for this battle. Now we switch back to Jimijaz's perspective as he has sent more torpedoes which have missed the Normandy. And right now he's just using his guns. He's able to do this right now relatively safely because there is a New Mexico that is drawing the attention of the flank, and Jimijaz, even though he is detected, isn't the closest opponent or closest ally to the opponents, and so is able to fire his guns relatively safely. But he does know that this New Mexico is just about to go down, and he's going to have to continue to pull back and just use his concealment and his torpedo systems to try to discourage the opponents from continuing to press in here. You can also see on the southeast side of the map over by Delta, even though the cap hasn't been taken by the opposition clearly has the upper hand there as well, or they are going to get there very quickly, and we're going to be in a pincer situation very, very rapidly. There we have lost one of our other destroyers, the T-61, to a detonation. So our team is already down 5 ships to the opposition's 1. The Normandy here is now very low. Fortunately, this was the battleship that was pressing this flank for the opposition. And Jimmy has sent some more torpedoes, but it's not clear whether these are going to land just yet. But you can see how our team is sort of getting enveloped from both the west side as well as from the south. So we are definitely in a pincer situation. Jimmy sends out this next set of torpedoes, but he is going to elect to use his guns here to try to help take out the Normandy. Another salvo out. He needs to get up into the superstructure in order to get a pen, which he does, and he does take down the battleship. Here we have Fuso on our team, who's also very wounded, and he is he's in a very precarious situation as well because he's getting focused. We've now lost another battleship, our New York, so that leaves the Fuso and a Bayern on our team as our heavies, while Jimijaz and I are continuing to have to pull back. Our aircraft carrier is going to have to do the same. I'm now putting fire on this low health New Mexico that's over on the 9 line to try to help get him down. We're obviously quite desperate. We have a 4-ship deficit. We've only sunk 2 ships to the opposition 6. I take a torpedo here. I'm getting dropped by the carrier. The Nürnberg doesn't have very good maneuverability, plus that was a reasonably decent drop. Thankfully, our Bayern does take down the New Mexico, but then we immediately lose our Fuso. So we are down to 1 battleship, and we continue to lose ships left, right, and center. Now we have a full health Koenig that I'm firing on, and I do get a fire on him. I'm going to have to be pulling back here. There's a Pensacola here, but his aim and accuracy isn't that good. One thing that is good, however, is our Ryujo is doing a good job focusing on the Bayern, which is the next threat that's moving up this flank here. Between my fires and against the Koenig. So my fires on the Koenig as well as the drops from the Ryujo on that Koenig battleship are going to help try to keep him pushed off the flank as well. We switch back to Jimijaz's perspective as he's sending torpedoes towards the center of the map. Again, try to discourage some of these opponents, in this case this Leander, from trying to push in further. We're clearly being heavily pincered, and there isn't a whole lot that we can do. Our Bayern, which is in the middle of the Bravo cap, is now the focus of the opposition. He's in a crossfire, and that's going to leave, and aside from him, that leaves Jimijaz and myself, and a London and our aircraft carrier. Now, Jimmy does get a couple of torpedoes on the Leander. You can see how low alpha these torpedoes are on the cruiser. The cruiser was flooding. Jimijaz is going to start opening up here to try to help either get at least get the Leander on fire if at all possible, but ideally take him out. And in fact, you can now see Västerås moving up to try to aid his Leander, but we do take down the Leander. Our London does, and we've now switched briefly back to my perspective because I was able to finish off the Koenig that was moving up that east flank, and so that's my first kill of the match, shooting down some more planes. So things are really at this point obviously are not looking very good. Switching over to the Janway that's moving in toward the Charlie cap, not the Bravo cap, the Charlie cap. And so like I said, things are just not looking very good. Our Bayern is in the middle of the cap. Myself and the London have all had to peel back and are trying to use range fire to give ourselves some maneuverability options, but also try to keep fire on the opposition that's pressing in toward these caps. But things aren't. In fact, you can see some more torpedoes going in on our Bayern. So it's not clear how much longer he's going to survive. Now we're going to switch our attention to this Pensacola, I should say. That's moving up the east flank. Come back to Jimijaz's perspective. You can see that Bayern has just been finished off. So it's just the 4 of us. The opposition has 3 caps. They have a 3-ship advantage at this point. And we have a Nürnberg and the Ismail that Jimijaz sent torpedoes on that are moving over from the west. And the Janway has now moved into the Charlie cap. Jimijaz does land 3 torpedoes on the Ismail, but at the same time, the aircraft carrier was dropping the Ismail, so he gets the kill. And that helps because now we've narrowed the ship gap to 2. And now we're going to switch back to my perspective as I'm putting fire on the low health Janway that I think originally had gone into the Charlie cap, but now one of the Västeroses has gone into the cap. Here I am able to finish off the Janway. So now we've narrowed the ship lead for the opposition to 1. And I'm gonna fire for the moment on this Västerås that is on the south side of the Charlie cap, but then I'm going to transition my perspective my firing to the Nürnberg that is moving over from the west side of Charlie. Jimijaz is also trying to help get the destroyer off the flank. The opposition has 2 destroyers still, so one of them was able to take the cap. Now I'm going to do something I haven't done in quite a while, is show both perspectives simultaneously. So Jimijaz is on the left, myself on the right. I'm in a gunfight with the Nürnberg. The opposing Nürnberg is not using AP on me, which he should be. I am, and I'm going to finish him off much more rapidly, even though he had a significant health advantage. And Jimijaz at the same time finished off one of the Västeroses that was over by the Charlie cap. So almost simultaneous kills there by both of us. And we have now gotten a 1-ship lead for our team, but our team has no caps. So at this point, if I were on the opposing team, I would probably have one of my ships, probably not the destroyer, maybe the Pensacola, basically turning around and trying to run. In fact, you'll notice that we did briefly detect the opposing Ark Royal in the middle of the map at Foxtrot 5. So he is also moved quite close to us. Now, normally that isn't necessarily a bad thing, because that by moving up, ideally into a fairly protected position, but by being closer, you can cycle your planes a lot more quickly. These torpedoes look like they're probably going to miss, because Jimijaz did have to send behind in order to not just shoot at the terrain directly, but the Pensacola did move away. Now, we've briefly switched to my perspective as I've gotten dropped by the carrier again, and I was thinking at this point, oh, I've got these torpedoes beat, I'm right between the left and the center one, but our Royal Navy aircraft carriers, or at least the Ark Royal, when it drops torpedoes, they actually converge. And so now I was sweating a little bit whether I was going to take a torpedo, but as luck would have it, they do expire. So now I'm going to move into the Charlie cap, switch back to Jimijaz's perspective as he's moving to Charlie as well, and we're working to focus out the Pensacola. We obviously also want to, we're going to have to get the carrier down if we have any chance of winning as well, because the point deficit is just so huge. But the focus right now is to shoot the surface ships that can fire back, and also the Pensacola is lower health. You see some shells coming in from myself, the London, and Jimijaz on the Pensacola. And in fact, the aircraft carrier, I think, will also be attempting to drop him as well. And but now we're going to have to start looking at the aircraft carrier as well, as the Pensacola is peeling away. He's leaving Jimijaz's range of fire. So that's why I think he switched over to briefly to the aircraft carrier. But you can see some torpedoes that were dropped by our aircraft carrier on the Pensacola. So we know that the aircraft carrier is trying to get the Pensacola down as quickly as possible. We've now switched over to my perspective, as I had been set on fire by the Västerås that was over near his aircraft carrier. And now I'm going to go and put some pressure on the aircraft carrier. There we see the Västerås. He is very low health, has just a few hit points, but I am also very low. In fact, I'm burning, and I can't put this out immediately, although it will expire before I go down. And you can see more planes over on the 9 or 10 line from our aircraft carrier going in on the Pensacola, and he does finish off the Pensacola. Now, this is a point where I make a mistake. I have no need to push out here to try to kill the destroyer. The destroyer's torpedoes come up very quickly, and with my hydro and the vigilance, I detect them as soon as he launches them, but at this range, there's no way I can escape him. I do take out the destroyer, but as is typical of the obligatorily exploding Nuremberg, I detonate for my troubles, but at least I get some signals out of it. So what I probably should have done is stopped where the London now is, and just used my hydro to keep the destroyer lit, because Jimijaz was already coming down on this side and would have been able to fire on the destroyer and take him out anyway, and I would have survived, and I would have potentially had the chance to kill the aircraft carrier. But that honor looks like it's going to go to our London, as you can see the torpedoes going in, and he will finish off the aircraft carrier. So a spectacular come from behind win, a very strong salute to our colleague in the London, Dark Zhao King, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, who earned 2200 base XP. Very, very close come from behind win. An excellent match. Something that was definitely one of these things where you need to take a break afterwards in order to calm your nerves. So I hope you enjoyed the replay and the commentary. I will leave all of the results up for both Jimijaz and myself here for you to peruse at your leisure. Please do leave your comments below, and as always, we hope to see you out there on the virtual seas, and we wish you happy sailing.